My neighbor Karen's scream could have shattered glass, but it was her finger jabbing at my guest that made my stomach lurch. "You don't belong here!" she shrieked, her voice slicing through the humid summer air like a knife through butter. It was supposed to be a quiet barbecue, a chance to unwind after a brutal week. But now I stood frozen, watching my carefully planned evening spiral into chaos. My guest, Marcus, a man whose presence commanded respect, didn't flinch. His calm eyes locked onto Karen's, and I swear the air crackled with tension. This wasn't just a neighborhood spat. This was a collision of worlds, and I was stuck in the wreckage. It all started innocently enough. I'd moved into this gated community 6 months ago, lured by the promise of peace, manicured lawns, and friendly faces. The HOA, led by Karen, was the self-appointed guardian of our suburban utopia. She was the kind of woman who measured your grass with a ruler and left passive-aggressive notes about mailbox colors. I'd kept my head down, nodding politely at her suggestions, while secretly dreading her next power trip. But I never imagined she'd turn my backyard barbecue into a battlefield. Marcus was my college mentor, a federal judge who'd risen from nothing to wield justice in courtrooms across the country. He was in town for a conference, and I'd invited him over to catch up, share some ribs, and maybe laugh about the old days. He arrived in his understated suit, his graying temples and warm smile unchanged from the man who'd taught me to question everything. My other guests' friends, co-workers, and a few neighbors mingled easily, the smell of charcoal and jazz floating through the air. It was perfect, until Karen showed up. She stormed through my gate, her HOA binder clutched like a holy relic. "Who's that man?" she demanded, pointing at Marcus as if he were a stray dog. I laughed, thinking it was a joke. "That's Marcus, my guest," I said, keeping my tone light. But Karen's eyes narrowed, her lips pursing into a thin line. "He doesn't live here. I don't recognize him. You know the rules, guests need prior approval." I blinked, stunned. The HOA handbook was a 50-page manifesto of nonsense, but this was next level. "Karen, he's my mentor, a federal judge. He's not here to rob us." Her face didn't soften. If anything, it hardened, her cheeks flushing with righteous indignation. "Rules are rules," she snapped. "We have standards. I'm calling the police." My jaw dropped. The other guests froze, their conversations dying as Karen pulled out her phone and dialed 911 with the speed of someone reporting a murder. Marcus, standing by the grill, raised an eyebrow but said nothing. His silence was louder than her hysteria. The cops arrived in under 10 minutes, their sirens cutting through the evening like a bad omen. 2 officers, one young and twitchy, the other older and world-weary, stepped into my backyard. Karen launched into her tirade, gesturing wildly at Marcus. "This man is trespassing. He's not on the approved guest list, and I don't feel safe." The younger officer looked uncomfortable, glancing at Marcus, who stood with his hands in his pockets, exuding calm authority. The older officer, clearly used to HOA nonsense, sighed. "Ma'am, let's calm down." "Sir, can you identify yourself?" Marcus smiled faintly, pulling out his wallet with deliberate slowness. "Marcus Ellison, United States District Court Judge." He handed over his ID, and the air shifted. The younger officer's eyes widened as he read it. The older one chuckled softly, shaking his head. Karen, however, wasn't done. "That doesn't matter. He's not on the list. This is a private community." Her voice was shrill now, and I could see neighbors peering over fences, phones out, recording the spectacle. I stepped forward, my heart pounding. "Karen, you're embarrassing yourself. He's my guest. A judge. You called the cops over nothing." But she doubled down, her eyes blazing with a mix of fear and defiance. This isn't about him being a judge. It's about safety. You don't know who he is. The irony hit me like a freight train. Marcus, a man who'd spent decades upholding the law, was being profiled in my backyard because Karen couldn't handle a black man in a suit she didn't recognize. Marcus finally spoke, his voice low and steady, cutting through the chaos like a gavel. "Ma'am, I've spent my career ensuring justice is served. I'm not here to disrupt your neighborhood, but your actions, they're disrupting something far bigger." His words hung heavy, and for a moment even Karen faltered. But only for a moment. "I'm protecting our community," she shot back, clutching her binder tighter. The officers exchanged a look, clearly done with her. "Ma'am, there's no crime here," the older one said. "You need to leave this man alone." You'd think that would have ended it. But Karen wasn't built for surrender. She stormed off, muttering about filing a complaint with the HOA board. The officers apologized to Marcus, who waved it off with a grace I couldn't muster. The barbecue resumed, but the vibe was ruined. Guests whispered about Karen, about the cops, about the audacity of it all. Marcus stayed until the end, laughing and sharing stories, but I could see the weight in his eyes. He'd faced this kind of nonsense before, too many times. The next day, I thought the worst was over. I was wrong. Karen escalated. She posted a scathing letter on the HOA's private forum, accusing me of endangering the community by hosting unvetted strangers. She didn't name Marcus, but the subtext was clear. The post exploded, with neighbors piling on some defending her, others calling her out. I was livid, but Marcus? He was calm. "Let me handle this," he said, his voice carrying the weight of someone who'd stared down worse. He didn't sue. He didn't need to. Marcus showed up to the next HOA meeting, uninvited, in his full judicial gravitas. The room fell silent as he walked in, his presence filling the space like a storm cloud. Karen, sitting at the head of the table, paled. Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "I understand the desire to protect your community," he said, his tone measured but piercing. "But when your protection becomes exclusion, when it targets someone based on nothing but your own assumptions, you're not safeguarding anything. You're tearing it apart." He laid out the facts. The false police call, the public humiliation, the racial undertones. He didn't accuse Karen directly, but every word was a mirror held up to her actions. The board squirmed. Neighbors who'd cheered Karen on now looked at their shoes. When Marcus finished, he left without another word. The room stayed quiet for a long time. Karen resigned as HOA president the next week. She claimed it was for personal reasons, but the whispers said otherwise. The neighborhood was split. Some called her a victim of woke cancel culture. Others said she got what she deserved. I didn't care. I was done with the HOA, done with the petty power plays. Marcus, ever the mentor, called me after. "Don't let this make you bitter," he said. "People like her? They're scared. Scared of change. Scared of losing control. You keep living your truth." But the ending wasn't tidy. Karen moved away a month later, her house sold quietly. The HOA rewrote its guest policy, but the damage was done. My neighbors still eyed each other warily, the fault lines of race and privilege exposed. I couldn't host another barbecue without feeling the ghost of that night. Marcus went back to his courtroom, his life unchanged, but I couldn't shake the image of him standing in my backyard, dignity intact, while Karen tried to tear him down. This wasn't just about a nosy neighbor or a bad HOA. It was about what happens when fear and power collide with justice and truth. It's about the systems we build to protect us and how they can hurt instead. So I ask you, what's the line between safety and prejudice? When does standing up for your community become standing against someone else's humanity?